Hey everybody, what's going on? It is Mike Vassallo of Financial Equities, and this is another episode of Yeah, What's the Rate? I have my friend Deniz Ozgur from Douglas Elliman with me today, and we're just going to chop it up and talk about what's going on in the real estate industry, personal life, interest rates, buyers, sellers, listings, and everything in between. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
I appreciate it. We were discussing before we came on how we're uncomfortable being comfortable, figuring out how to do a podcast, what to say. And this is maybe number 5 or 6, I want to say. And I'm
a lot more than me.
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out. I do not have it down to a science, but I think it's a great outlet just to come and discuss what we see going on in each of our industries, what we see going on into the fall market. There's been some big announcements in my industry and your industry recently that, some of us think are going to be game changers, which maybe they really are not. And probably the biggest thing as of late is interest rates and stuff. But before we begin any of that, I always like to ask the question to my guest is that as a real estate agent, how did you become a real estate agent? How did that come about? Like, how did you fall into being a real estate agent?
I never imagined doing real estate as a full-time agent. This was, I know all my real estate agent, friends are going to say, you could never do it part-time. And yes, I couldn't do it part-time. Okay. But the way I got into it was I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. My kids were 2 and 4. All right. 1.5 and like almost 3.5 to 4. And I was like, what do I do? And I'm like, all right, maybe I'll do real estate. So I got my license, did a couple deals in that first year. I'm like, okay, this is good. I can probably keep going like this. When I had more time on my hand, then I figured, okay, this isn't what I want. I want to do more. So that's really how it all started. It was really an idea to do it very part-time when my kids were little.
Right. Yeah, no, you're able to be home and take care of them.
Yes, and I realized very quickly within 2-3 years I was in the business, I'm like, whatever you put into it, that's what you get. So if you only want to do 2-3 deals a year, yes, you can do that. But of course, in the recent years, you start to understand that that's really not the best way to do real estate. You have to be in 100% because you are dealing with the biggest investment for
somebody's
families.
life. Yeah, 100%.
So, no, I don't think that was the right beginning for my real estate career, but that's how really it started.
All right. I find that a lot of people, whether real estate, mortgages and stuff, it's something that someone kind of fell into. You know what I mean? Where it wasn't something that was planned. Like ever since elementary school, I always wanted to be a real estate agent, or I wanted to be a mortgage person, or you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it just so happens to just come about. And
yes, and the reason why I never thought I would do it is I always thought you need to know people, right? That's what which I still do agree. You do need to know people in order to do this business. And I have family, but I don't have extended family here. Most of my extended family is back in Turkey. Yeah. I have my dad, my sister, my in-laws, and that's it.
Right. That's your network. That was your sphere.
My network. I'm like, how do you do this with not knowing anyone? Right. And funny, the first 3 houses I sold was my dad, my father-in-law, and my friend.
So you did the circle.
So I did the circle, and I'm like,
now what?
Now what?
Okay.
I didn't do another deal for another year.
Okay.
That was it. That was 3 deals I did. I was like, okay, maybe this isn't going to work. Yeah. So I sat on the sideline probably for about a year.
Trying to figure out the next move.
Trying to figure out, like, how do you do this?
Okay.
And, then things started happening. Then I started to look into how to do it, which I do still believe that having that background, even having a workforce background is very beneficial in this industry too. Right. I have no work history. I've never worked in anything else other than
this. Okay.
I got out of college. I had kids, and I stayed home.
And then you went into this. Okay.
And then I came into this. So I have no work history, no
experience or prior.
None of that. Yeah. So that's why I never thought I would do this long time. I thought after the first year, I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm going to continue doing this.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the mortgage industry is similar to the real estate in terms of like flexibility, being available, being at your kids. We were talking before about being at kids like sporting events and things like that, family like you don't miss that stuff. You're able to kind of have a flexible schedule,
Right.
and you really could make as little or make as much as you want. If you wanted to close 3 deals or 5 deals, you could do that all in 1 month and then not work the rest of the year if you didn't want to, theoretically. But like you were saying, that model doesn't really work for the long term of having that, short in and out type of thing.
Right. And the more you know about the industry, then you start realizing it's just not fair. It's not fair for the people that you're working with, because you don't have the experience
to really knowledge, knowledge
to really help them.
Right.
That's where I started to say, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this, because this is really
questions are being asked, maybe you don't know the answer to, or things like that.
Then I said, okay, am I going 100% in this, or am I done with real estate? And that's really that came probably like 3 years after I was licensed.
Well, you're rocking and rolling now, so I mean, you figured it out.
I think I did. Trying to.
But yeah, no, it's crazy, and I always like to ask that question because I just find that every single person got into the industry some way or somehow that may not be so black and white.
I always hear people say, "Well, I purchased a house and."
Yep, I've had that. Yeah. I saw what they did and I was like, wait, I could do this.
Yes.
Similar on the mortgage end. They're like, what can I do to get my mortgage license? I'm like, here you go. But you could get your real estate license and even your mortgage license pretty relatively, I don't want to say easily, but it's attainable for the average person to get. You don't need to be great at math. You don't need to know everything but about houses in that respect. Mm-hmm. But over time and with the experience, you can definitely pick it up and learn. I find that what we're doing right now is probably the most important, is being able to network, being able to create a sphere of influence of where are you going to get your next deal from, whether it's an investor, a flipper, first-time home buyers, getting involved in your kid's school, PTA, whatever it may be.
Right.
Those are the different ways to produce more business, and to get your name out there.
Absolutely.
But you have to constantly do it. You can't stop.
Yes. I feel like you have to constantly be prospecting.
Yeah, I always say planting seeds, because the seeds that you plant, say now in September, may not blossom till November, December, or maybe even the next year. Yeah. But if you're not doing that now and putting that time in, then when that time comes, you're gonna be like, wait, why don't I have? Well, you weren't doing anything in August and September.
Right.
That's why you're slow in January.
Yes. So there should be no day that goes by that you haven't spoken to at least
somebody
about
it's a past
buying,
client,
selling, or whatever it is. Just having a normal conversation.
And I fall into that where I don't. We all do. No one is perfect.
Oh, we all do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have your days where you're like, oh God,
I look back. I'm like, what did I do today? Oh my God.
That's right. Yeah. You got caught
I
up
did the
with
laundry.
Laundry. Yep.
I caught up with that.
Yeah. Well, those are important things too. But going back to why you got into this industry, having that flexibility allows you to take that day to do those personal things.
Definitely.
Or, if you were doing 9 to 5 and taking the train to the city and coming back, and you wouldn't have that flexibility you have now.
Like my kids complain, you don't have set work hours. Sometimes they'll ask, they're like, oh, can we do this on the weekend? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see if I don't have work.
Yet, right.
I don't know yet.
Yes.
And they complain, but then, I always have to remind them, if it wasn't for the flexibility, I wouldn't be at the volleyball game.
Yep.
I wouldn't be taking
100%,
you,
you would be
wherever you wanted to. Because I have that flexibility, I can, but then I have to work around other people's schedule. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. And I wouldn't change it for anything. I don't think I would be able to do a 9 to 5 job.
No, neither would I. I truly love what I do.
I do too. I mean, as much as I want to quit every day, I love it.
We just said on the walk over, you're like, I got this deal. I'm like, it's like, but it is part of the business,
Yeah.
My kids, again, they will when they're older, but now they don't think they appreciate the flexibility and stuff. So, they'll ask for something like, I want water. And I'm like, I'm busy, I'm working, and they're like, no, you're not, you're on Instagram. And I'm like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but part of this is my job. I have to do these things. So they make fun of me about the what's the rate and all that. God. And I'm like, one day, the things you have, the life you live, I'm like, it's because of the things that daddy does, or whatever.
Yeah,
whether
when they see you on the phone,
not,
they think you're scrolling.
Yeah.
So I'll be on my phone, I'll be answering an email or a text or whatever it is, and I'm like, give me 1 second, I'm working. She goes, really? I'm like,
right, yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Like, you know by now, this is work.
This is work, yeah. They haven't figured it out, but... so going into another topic I wanted to kind of touch on, and we're touching briefly on it before, is the biggest thing in the real estate world right now is the rates.
Yes.
So
What's
we
the
have
rate?
the rate. Yeah. What's the rate? So what is the rate? So I mean, right
What is
now,
really the
currently,
rate?
we are in the low sixes, even high fives, depending on the criteria of the client. So that is amazing. The Fed still says October and even November that we may see another 1 or 2 cuts before the end of the
Right.
year. Obviously, and I don't want to get political, but it definitely is politically driven, knowing that there's an election coming up in November. Gas prices, the interest rates, they're all going to
Sure.
obviously try to make us as the consumer happy as
Right.
possible. So with that being said, I know on my end, I have had a lot of buyers who've kind of come out of the woodwork to kind of ask, hey, now what am I approved for? What are my options at these new rates? What are you seeing with potential buyers and sellers on your end with the craze of these new rates that now we are seeing, give or take?
We were kind of talking
Yes.
about this before. I definitely have buyers that were maybe out of the market for, the last 5-6 months, reach back out, especially sellers too, because I have a lot of sellers that are waiting for the rates to come down to whatever that number is in their head
Right.
to get there so they can sell and buy.
Okay.
It all comes down to each person understanding their financials and what that number feels like. And, I say the same thing to everyone. We have to run numbers. We have to see where you are. Just because the rate came down, whatever the price point, the point was.
What does it mean for you?
What does it mean for you in your situation? What does your monthly payment need to look like? So it's like all these conversations you're having. But I did have that whole, week of people.
Yep.
Oh my God! Now does it mean I can buy a house now?
Yeah, my phone was blowing up. Yeah,
can
it
I
was crazy.
sell my house now?
Yeah,
Like, what do I get into? I'm like, we're kind of in the same situation we were
a week ago.
A week ago.
It hasn't really changed
not much. I mean, yes, it
Yeah.
has created some activity, but not much has changed.
Right.
After you run the numbers, you kind of realize, okay, maybe a little bit, but not tremendously.
I'm curious whether or not with the drop in rates, just from what we've seen or what we're going to see if it goes down more, is that will you now have a seller who's like, you know what, now I'm going to list my home.
I do
have that wave of new inventory hitting the market.
I'm sure everybody does, but I do have, off the top of my head, I'm in touch with at least 6 people who are sellers and serious sellers that wants to sell, but
can't pull the trigger yet on
can't
what
pull
the
the
timing
trigger
of it is. Yeah.
because I sold them the house at 5% maybe, but they refinance. Now they're at a 2 or 3.
Yeah. They have the golden handcuffs. It's like,
yes,
you want to sell, you have all these, you have all of this equity, you want to sell, but now you're not okay with getting a 6% rate,
right?
Because you have a 2.8 or a 3,
right?
I think it's going to come to a point if it gets a little bit lower where people will refi out of a 3% rate to say a 5 or 5.5 because they're sitting on a ton of equity. The house they've just grown out of, if there's a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom ranch and they're expecting baby number 3, it just doesn't work. Like
No.
you have to swallow the pill and you're going to say, you know what, the hell with it. I'm going to refi to that 5% rate. I'm going to take out that 100, 200 grand to dormer the house or to put that extension on, whatever it may be. Or no, I'm going to sell and go to the house that I need for my family.
And remember 2020, 2021, people got into houses just to get into houses.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are sitting in homes that they settled for.
Yeah, because wasn't
necessarily what
they
wanted. Maybe it wasn't the location they wanted. It wasn't the size. Yeah. A lot of people settled down to anything and everything
that was possible. Yeah, you couldn't find anything.
All those people are waiting too.
Right, they would like to sell and get what they truly do.
Right, what they truly want. Or people moved from the city not knowing the island that well. They're in a location they don't necessarily love. Yeah. Now they
figured it out more.
Now
They've
they
been here
figured
for
it out.
Years
now they know,
stuff.
what they like.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I never.
There's a lot of those. I have another set of sellers that I sold house to in like end of 2021.
They're contemplating not.
They're in the same boat. Either they bought a small house because they didn't need a bigger house then. Now they have 2. They're expecting another baby. People are just outgrowing it, and I think there is going to come a point where they're going to say, "What the heck? I'm done. I need to do this. We have to do."
So I said it needs to get a little bit lower. We're not going to see the 3s and 4s, but I think if we could get into the 5s. It will be monumental. Yeah.
That's what I always bought my house
and all of that stuff. But you speak to a lot of people who are stuck on that 2-3%, which is like we'll never see again. I honestly don't think we will. And I get it. But when you run those numbers at 3% versus 6%, that payment is a hell of a lot different. And that's your utilities, it's your gas bill, it might be a car payment,
It's
whatever it may be.
Payment,
and you know what? If you have a fixed income and that's what you're budgeted for, that 300, 500, whatever makes a huge difference. So
it does, yeah. Absolutely.
That's the biggest struggle on my end is what I'm seeing is that I have the buyers who are pre-approved and ready to go, but there's just every weekend they're out there up against cash, up against multiple offer situations and waiving appraisals, waiving home inspections. First time home buyer, that's not a real warm fuzzy feeling that you have to waive a home inspection,
and
waive an appraisal, but they're doing it. Where it's like they're asking you like, what do you think, and how do you guide somebody in the right way? It's tough. Like me personally, no, I wouldn't want to, but you know what? If you want the house, and this is what everybody's doing,
right?
What's the other option?
The question is, how bad do you want a house? How bad do you need a house? And are you okay with the payment that you're paying today?
Yeah.
Yes, you can refinance in maybe a year or two, whatever that may be.
Right. But that's not guaranteed.
But that's not guaranteed. Yeah. And I never want to make it seem like that's your plan.
Exit strategy.
No,
it's like, you'll just refinance in 12 months.
If you're comfortable with it now and you're comfortable with, the appraisal, like you really have to mentally be ready before you go out to look at houses. That's why I sit down. I'm like, let's have a full-on reality check so you understand exactly what's going to happen out there.
So you sit with them and like an onboarding, like a new buyer, like have almost like a consultation.
I mean, whether it's a phone call or a Zoom call or we meet at a Starbucks, before we go out to, seriously look at houses, I do sit down and I give them what the market is right now, what's happening in the market and what they should be prepared for.
Okay.
Because I don't want, the last thing I want for us to go out there and now they're introduced to all these new things. Okay, so we put the offer in, but you know what? There's another appraisal, there's another offer, waiving appraisal inspection. Do you want to do that?
Like
I don't want to have that last minute
right.
conversation with people. So I have that prior to doing anything. I'm like, this is what could happen. This is how we can do it.
It's important. That's huge.
Are you able to do it? Because if you're not able to do it, then, we have nothing to talk about. Then, we go back and we say, nope, we're not waiving the appraisal. We need the appraisal. But you have to have those conversations with people. Otherwise, you're setting them up for failure. Yeah. Once you're on the market, looking for homes, submitting offers, now they feel like they have to make a spot. They have to make a decision on the spot, last minute.
They're not prepared for.
Oh my God, what do I do? Yeah. And then they get scared. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I don't want to say all the time, but that's where I see a lot of accepted offers now backing out and now coming for the second offer, the third offer, because people are just not prepared.
Yeah. I just had one yesterday. They got an accepted offer. They were excited. The guy was taking money out of a 401k, calls to get the information, never did the due diligence on what the tax ramification was by pulling money out of it.
Okay.
Now finds out, he's like, oh shit, I don't want to do that anymore. It was like, well, you knew this whole time that's where the money was coming from. You didn't look into it. Mm-hmm. So now goes back on the offer, says, I don't want it. Weekend goes by, Monday morning, now he wants back in. Well, now there's another accepted offer, another home inspection being done. What are you going to? So it's like not having that due diligence done up front.
Yeah.
Case in point of what you just said could have all been avoided if he had done the due diligence, knowing the money where he was accessing it, what those ramifications or what those tax penalties were going to be, and whether or not that was something that person was comfortable doing.
Right.
Same thing.
And sometimes you have to have these hard conversations with people, and they're tough to have in the beginning, but I think it's better.
You have to. You can't really sugarcoat it. A lot of the younger generation now has a lot of cryptocurrency and these Coinbase accounts and stuff, and explaining to them how that can or cannot be used towards the purchase of a property and stuff. That's not a conversation you would have with I don't even want to say older person, even some 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Yeah. The 20-something-year-old buyers, like cryptocurrency is like a thing of theirs, where it's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not really well versed on it. To be honest with you, if I can't feel and touch it, I don't want anything to do with it.
Can you use it to buy?
You can, yes, you can liquidate it and transfer it over and all of that stuff. But I don't using it as actual money in a transaction.
As actual
payment. I have mortgage wise, no. I'm sure on a cash transaction, I feel like I have seen it before.
Okay.
On a cash transaction. But that's above my pay grade. I honestly have never dealt with any of that.
I have no clue how that
But going back to what you were saying with talking about that onboarding interview, it's important, I think, on the mortgage end, we do something similar, because it's like before they go out and look with you, well, what is your price point? Well, they were looking at, they contacted you on Zillow on a $700,000 home that they loved, to come to find out that that mortgage payment on that house would have been $7,000.
Right.
Where they're like, oh my God, we need to be at about 4,000 or 5,000. Right. So doing that, pre-approval and going through all of that with them at the beginning to give them realistic expectations as to, if you want to be at this price point monthly, this is what you need to look within. This is the tax parameters you need to look in,
right,
so that when we go back to you with that buyer, they know what they're looking at is within the realm that we've come up with during the pre-approval.
Absolutely.
Because you fall in love with it, find out, and it's like now you're comparing everything to that $700,000 home.
Right.
And nothing now that you see forward moving on from that compares or comes anything close to.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what we see a lot of too. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I think, I feel like people are more in real estate. Like the consumer is constantly in real estate,
yes,
scrolling through Zillow, whether it's Instagram, TikTok too. They have all these information floating around, and, until they sit down with an actual professional for a pre-approval or an agent, they have no clue.
Yeah.
And then the reality sits in and they're like, okay, this is what the monthly payment looks like. This is how the market is. This is what we need to do.
Education is the biggest thing. And again, I think by educating the client up front, it gets all of those questions 100%. Out. So that when you are in the 11th hour putting an offer in, or even starting the mortgage process, these are not like, oh, you never told me that. Oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
I speak to sometimes a first-time home buyer. They don't know that there are closing costs.
Yeah.
You and I may laugh and be like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, how can you not do? But a first time home buyer that's never gone through the process, they don't know these things.
Listen, so I remember when we first bought our house, I was 24. No, I was 24, not 2013. I had no clue, like zero clue. My husband came home and he said, we need a pre-approval. I'm like, we need a what?
Yeah. What the hell is that?
I had no clue.
Right, yeah.
I remember we went to speak with a lender. I sat in the car because the girls were in the car. He went in and he came back and I said, so what happened? He goes, we got something. It's a pre-approval. I'm like, so what do we do with
now
this?
What? Yeah,
now what?
Yeah, right. You don't
and there wasn't a lot of information floating around on social media. So I was like, okay, so I guess we look at a house now. Yeah. And I had like zero understanding. I didn't have a closing cost. We were going to roll it in the mortgage. Yeah. I'm like, you could do that?
Yeah. Imagine now in this market doing that would never happen. Yeah.
But, so you are really clueless when you're first buying a house.
Which is expected if you've never done it. Now that we've had these conversations today with our phones, probably picking up everything we're saying, you're going to have every real estate ad, every mortgage ad, Rocket More. You're going to have everything. It's amazing to me. With going back to the phones, everybody's swiping, it's at the other.
Yeah.
It's like it literally picks up on everything that it has to. It's listening. There's no way it's not.
It is. There's a way to turn it off.
Is there? Okay.
I don't know how well it works. You can turn off the mic, like you go into settings, Facebook, Instagram. You can turn off your mic or do something.
Okay.
But then it becomes a problem when you go back to
try to
post anything. Then you have to turn the mic back on.
Oh, okay.
So I tried it for a little bit.
You're like, the hell with it. I'll leave it on. Yeah. So now it's hilarious.
Hit me up with
just give it to me.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm the most I'm the person that clicks to buy.
Yeah.
I see something, I'm like, oh nice, okay, buy it.
And then that thing will follow you for the next 3 months until you buy it. I mean, you'll go on your computer and it's on
there.
like it's on your phone. It's there. It's like the technology it's just unbelievable.
I will buy that. And I think they know.
Yeah.
So they'll keep giving, showing it to me. I'm like, okay, damn it.
I'm impulsive in that respect too, where like I'll see it, I'll click on it, and then next thing I know, it just keeps coming up. I do the same thing with if you put something in like your shopping cart on a website and leave it there.
Yeah.
Like in a couple of years, like 10% off.
Did you forget something?
This? Oh, we're going to give you 20% off. You're like, let's see how far I could push it. I put in my cart the other day, where I was like ordering like fall decorations or whatever like that. And I put this like wreath in the cart. And like now I got an email like yesterday, 30% off. And I'm like, this is crazy. I was like, at first when I put it in the cart, nothing. I said, and then it slowly went up. Now it's 30% off. Still haven't bought it.
Whatever you do, don't go in the rabbit hole of the Temu thing.
Oh no, my kids do that.
I did.
Oh
my God, they won't leave me alone.
Yeah.
They give me promotions.
Yeah.
Spend $200.
And that's what Shein is the same thing.
I'm like, I don't want it. Like, I don't want it anymore.
I feel better about it.
I looked through it. I don't like it. Leave me alone.
She's like, I got all this stuff for $100. And I'm like, perfect. I'm like, you know what? That's great. I was like, if you guys to do that again and again and again, say rather that.
I bought once and my package got lost.
Oh, really?
I'm like, I'm never doing this again.
Timo, I don't know if I've ordered anything off of.
I did.
But the Shein stuff or whatever, like, daughter got bathing suits, my son got some t-shirts or whatever, and they were fine. And you know, for $2 or whatever, even if they wear them and you throw it out, who cares? It was $2, you know? So it is
whatever you do, don't click on Timo though.
Yeah.
Like they just don't leave you alone. Yeah. It's horrible.
It's funny. But the technology in our industry is you're going to see that, I think, and Douglas Elliman does a really good job. I feel like you guys have like a great
we do
platform for like the technology aspect
100%,
of it.
100%,
that's important because I think that's the direction the entire industry is going into.
Absolutely.
Where you don't want like a real estate agent, a mortgage person to be like not needed anymore. You know, like they keep on talking about like AI and ChatGPT and all these things are taking over like what the function is that we're doing as a person and not needing that person anymore. So I think keeping up with the technology aspect of the industry is important. That's why I did this podcast. So the reason behind this whole podcast is that, you know, posting your closings and your things like you and I do already on our social media, I think is important, but there's so many other things behind those behind the scenes of who you are as a person. Like if people don't really get to see you as you and it only is seeing posts and your stories or whatever, they're not really getting a clear indication of like who you are on a daily basis. You know, what is the true, you know, things going on in Deniz's world and Mike's world. Like, and I felt like the podcast gave that platform to come on, feel uncomfortable as hell, like we feel.
Yes.
But to just kind of air it out and paint a picture for someone that, you know what, when they do interview you and they're considering using you as their agent, whether it's to list or to buy, and they go on your platform and they listen to maybe a bit from this podcast or things that you've done in the past, it just creates an identity with you in the marketplace.
Absolutely. Because I think at the end of the day, people work with people they like.
Yeah.
100, I think it all comes down to, you know, somebody liking you to work with you.
Yes.
That's how I, you know, seen and really experienced. If they like you, they'll work with you. And if they trust you, they'll stick with you. And
Sorry, my phone is ringing.
No worries. So, you know, so it's important, you know, on our social medias, not to have just those sold.
Yes.
They have to know who are you? Because at the end of the day, I don't think they care about the house you sold. And
no,
I don't think they do. I think they want to know, okay, who are you? Are you a human being or are you just these sold postcards?
Right. And that's what I said. We can make ourselves look like influencers and stuff like that through the use of social media, and having a presence, I think, is important. But being your true character, I've had clients, you know, as an agent refer me as the lender, and then I could see that they like looked at my story. And I'm like, who is this person? And then like an hour later, I get a phone call. And I'm like,
get that too.
And you know what? That goes to show that people are doing due diligence. They're doing their homework. They might be looking up reviews on you. They might be looking at your social media profiles to see who you are.
100%.
And they want to work with somebody who they could identify with. You know, like I always say, if this doesn't work, then why would you want to work together on a real estate transaction? Or why would you? I've always felt like the relationship has to go where it's easy, where you could talk about whatever it may be, and then the real estate or the business aspect becomes it's secondary. It's so easy. It's just fluid because the relationship is there.
I agree.
But it takes time to develop those relationships. You know, I mean, it doesn't
definitely. I mean, you know, people have to like you and they have to trust you, and it takes time
to get to that place.
To get to that.
It's not overnight.
And you know, for someone to say, you know, I trust her, I recommend her, I refer her, or I want to work with her or him. It's important. It's a big aspect of our life.
Yeah. And those people that are referring you are putting the confidence in you that you will do the right thing. Hey, take care of my aunt. My uncle's going to call you. My colleague is going to call you. So that's huge for them to go out on a limb to say, call her. She's going to just follow her lead.
Right.
So to get to that point in your career that you've now established that, like I always literally like go back to my clients and thank them so much when they refer me to a colleague or a family member or a friend, because they didn't have to do that.
No,
they didn't. They could have been talking about houses or real estate or mortgages and interest rates and whatever. They could have been like, oh, you bank with whatever, just go get a pre-approval. Or, you know what, call the local real estate agent in your community or whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, after all, everybody knows a real estate agent.
Everybody. As a mortgage, I don't know about a lender, attorney, but I feel like everybody.
I feel like everybody knows.
When COVID happened,
at least 5 real estate agents.
Yeah, when COVID happened, everyone got their real estate license and their mortgage license. That's what I feel like. And that's when the rates went up as crippling as it was to the industry for that period of time. I kind of like drained that dead weight that people who kind of got their license on a whim.
Yeah.
For then people like you and I who are in this for the next, I mean, I know me, I'll be 70 years old still doing mortgages. Hopefully I'll be retired and I won't be doing them at that.
Hopefully we can retire.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it created a lot of dead weight where now I think it's skimmed the fat back a little bit. And now you kind of, and same thing when the rates, went up as well. I think that it did that as well. So we'll see. We don't have the crystal ball.
We don't.
So it kind of
just go with the flow.
Yeah. So I say roll with the punches. Every day's a new day. Some days are great. Some days are a little bit more stressful.
Exactly.
But
I feel like real estate is like you look like 5 minutes, and then the next 5 minutes everything could be upside down. I'm like, damn, I just celebrated something.
Yeah.
Now
it's extreme highs and lows.
Now this is falling apart. I'm like, give me a break.
It's extreme highs and lows. But if you're able to,
it's a roller
have more highs than the lows, at the end of the day, like I said, I don't want to use the cliche of, they always say, like, if you love what you do, you've never worked a day in your life. But I truly, with all the stresses and this, that, and the other, I love what I do. I don't complain Sunday night, like, oh my God, I have to go into the office on Monday or something like that. Or, oh, I have to go to this open house on Saturday. I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. So.
And I think that's very important too. Yeah.
But I thank you for taking the time and coming on today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. If you guys are not following us on social media, we'll leave our information for you to follow. But again, thank you for taking the time today, and
thank you for having me. This was great.
Welcome.
I had a lot of fun,
and it wasn't bad, right?
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Nope.
We weren't. We went with the flow. We had a couple of hiccups here or there, but again, I like to keep it raw. It's natural,
and that's the way it should be.
And this is who we are. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.